Hello. We're going to do a little bit of shoulder work today in this class. So I want you to have a ball handy. And this ball is pretty dense. So what I'm going to do when I work with this ball is I'm going to lay a blanket over it. So the information, the impact that it gives my shoulder isn't so direct that it causes my muscles to flex or tense up. A tennis ball tends to work really great for this kind of work. We're going to be working inside the shoulder. And really where we're going to focus is like right at the middle medial edge of the scapula. Then we're going to go up a little bit higher and even a little bit higher. So I just want to point it out to where we're going to start because it's hard to see when I'm on my back. So let's start in just a comfortable seated position. Keep your ball close by. And so much of the work I've been doing with these yoga practices is focusing on resilience. And one of the ways we can really bolster our resilience is through conscious slowing down of breath, specifically breath into the back body. So I want you to start with your hands, the backs of your hands just resting at the top of your low back or the bottom of your thoracic spine, right where your 12th rib lives. And you can let your elbows flop forward. Come into any comfortable seated position and just direct your breath into your back body. I invite you to close your eyes if you want or not. If you find that it's difficult to direct your breath into your back body, feel free just for this moment to slouch, a small little slouch through that low thoracic part of your spine. So the low ribs and the lower lobe of the lung gets a little amplified. And begin to slow your breath down if it feels okay. Notice the state in your body in which you're arriving to this practice. If it feels like there's charge in your system, or if you're starting in the morning and you're feeling pretty calm, just become aware of the entry point for you for this practice. And you might notice that entry point being kind of a general feeling, an overall state feeling, or you might notice specifics like behind my sternum is electricity, or my belly feels really soft and open. See if you can relax your tongue. And if your sit bones are sitting upon something, whether it's a block or the floor, imagine the sit bones softening and maybe broadening. And you might find, if you can imagine this, you might even be able to feel it. If you do that, you'll feel your pelvic floor rest down. You'll feel your belly soften a little bit. So see if you can keep your breath into your back body for just a couple more rounds of breath, and take one hand to your belly and one hand to your heart. I'm kind of just feeling which one feels right now. And for me, my right hand to my heart and my left hand to my belly feel right. And even though my hand is here, I'm directing the majority of my breath into my back body as much as what's possible. And notice what happens when you direct the majority of your attention into the breath in your back body. You might feel more breath than usual into your belly, which is cool because that lower lobe breathing in the lungs allows the diaphragm to go through its full range potential down. So your belly is going to definitely get pushed out a little bit more, which is awesome for what we're doing. And even notice the beat of your heart in your hand if that's available to you. And take a moment to just consciously feel the functionality of your organs and acknowledge how amazing your body is. the aliveness inside that functions without conscious thought. Thank baby Jesus. And more than anything, here, as you breathe into the lower lobes of the lungs and the back body, tap into the pace of slowing down. When you slow down, you get this beautiful opportunity to listen to the quieter voices inside. So stay with that pace and that sense of inner curiosity as to what's going on internally, and grab onto your ball. So like I said, this ball is pretty dense, so I'm going to put my blanket over the ball. And I'm going to start with my right shoulder blade. So finding that spot feels the most beneficial for my shoulder blade. And just off the bat, noticing if any part of my body tenses once I find the right spot. Seeing if I can still direct my breath into my back body. And if all that is a go, 2 thumbs up, I'm going to lift that right arm up. I'm actually doing my left shoulder blade, so I lie. So my left arm's lifting up, and I'm going to circle this arm around in a way that helps me get a little bit exploratory, noticing any difference in sensation as I move from place to place. Maybe slowing down in any place that feels like there's a little more interesting, quote unquote, sensation. Not quite unpleasant, but definitely not pleasant. Maybe spots that are holding more tension. Those are areas I'm going to slow down more. And that gives my brain an opportunity to take in more information. And the more information my brain gets about different places in my body, especially places that hold tension, the better, because then I have more agency around those places. I'm not a victim to them as much as my brain gets the opportunity to take in more information. From here, rest for a second and scooch up just a smidgy higher. And we're going to do the same thing. Circling the arm in this exploratory way, harvesting sensation. And taking in as much information as you can. I'm finding in my own body when the information gets a little louder, my low back wants to crawl up and the breath comes more into my front body, which is a breath that's more associated with a sympathetic charge, a charge that's meant to help us mobilize away from danger and move towards safety. And here it's like, dude, I'm fine. I'm not in any danger. There's no need to protect myself. So I'm just going to be like, hey, beautiful self-preservation response, like, I'm cool. Thanks. Thanks for being there, but I'm good right now. And even as I say that, I'm not even trying to make it happen. My back body's resting down and my breath is returning back to my lower lobe of my lung. It's really quite amazing, the brilliance of this body, of our physiology. Great. And after a few circles there, come up even higher, right to about where your trapezius muscle lives. If I didn't have this blanket here, the ball would probably go and get spit out. So it's like right at the verge of maybe being pushed out. And then I'm going to lift my hips up nice and slow until I find the just right amount of pressure, relaxing my shoulder blade, allowing my shoulder blade to feel its weight and my body to feel the effect of gravity in my shoulder blade. And you can see I'm just moving just a smidgy around to create again just this wealth of information for not only my brain to drink in, but also my shoulder to experience. So this area that really doesn't have a lot of nerve endings gets more lit up in my brain. And when it gets more lit up, I have more opportunity, more, like I said, agency to get really specific as to how I want to move or utilize that area. You can also move your arm around here. Nice crunchies. Great. And then release your tushy down, roll onto your side, come up to seated. And use this as a time to just check in. Like, was this worth it? Does one side feel different than another? If it does, get as specific as you can with how it's different. For me, this side feels lower, it feels broader. My belly even feels softer on this side. My diaphragm feels a little less tense. My hip even feels more settled. Like it's like the whole side of my body has some sort of resonant effect from working with the scap and the trapezius muscle. It's kind of cool. So let's do the other side. So coming onto my real right side this time, you get to pick which side. Whatever you did, do the opposite, obviously. So right in the scap, probably about the middle of the scap, and start just by checking in. Breath in the back body, soften the jaw, soften the tongue. See if your sit bones can have that same experience of releasing and broadening, even here. And then lift the arm up into the sky and just start to move it around. No specific organization to the movement, more like moving it to discover what's available, what sensations are there. I'm finding there's tons less sensation on this side, which leads me to understand this side is likely holding more tension. Often, chronic tension creates one of two things. One is pain, and the other one is numbness. So sometimes when we have less sensation, we kind of like put it out of our mind and think like, oh, that side's fine, no bother. But sometimes that's the side that actually needs more attention. So as the ball presses into my shoulder, I'm seeing if that part of my shoulder can get really curious about the ball, trying to feel for its texture, its temperature. And as those sensory nerves, those are nerves that drink information in, that take information in, as those sensory nerves get awakened and curious, the muscles start to be more available for sensation and opening. Try it yourself. Can that area get interested in texture, temperature? One more breath. And then scooching up just about an inch or so. Same thing. Breath in the back body, broad sit bones, broad palate as if as if you were yawning. That's how big and broad that palate can be. Happy open diaphragms are like sweet backstage pass to fluid emotional states. It's loco, and I can get into that a little bit more later. When we get into stressful responses, whether it's like a big stressful response or chronic stress, like so small stresses over a long period of time, one of the ways that our physiology tries to help our bodies navigate that is to create containers of stress so our whole body doesn't get overwhelmed at one time. And how it does that is the diaphragms are containers, they're separators. So the diaphragms can get really rigid and tight. And it's a great strategy in the moment, but very often the moment isn't necessary. Like right now, I'm like, dude, everything's good. I don't need to contain any overwhelm. So I'm going to practice softening my diaphragms. So any charge that might come into my system from stress that I'm consciously putting on it can flow really easily. And then that practice becomes second nature for when I'm off the mat, which is one of the reasons I think yoga can be such a powerful practice. Great. And then scooch down so the ball's right on your trap. Let the arms rest and press the feet down and allow the hips to float up. So almost like you're pouring more weight into the ball, relaxing the shoulder blade. Keeping the shoulder blade heavy and broad, just like the sit bones. You're going to find here as you engage your tush, the sit bones want to crunch in towards one another, but you do have the choice to keep your sit bones broad. See what that's like. Little movements, kind of rocking back and forth on that ball. Noticing if any like resonant sensation comes up into the jaw, maybe even like the eye or the sinuses, the ear. So many areas in the body, especially like from shoulder up, are related to this tension that we hold in our traps. You can move the arm around. I'm becoming aware that breath is getting a little bit more full into my upper chest here as I do this, which is like beautiful, like opening things up. Great. And then release. Come on back down. Again, roll onto your side. Come up to seated. And check in again. Shoulder roll. Any movement. Notice if the sides feel a little bit more balanced. We're going to take this the next further. So we worked on the shoulder blades in the back. I want to give a little tension to the collarbones. And what I want to do here is I want to grab, I'm going to kind of stand a little bit Eeyore-esque, like super slouchy, so my collarbones become really prominent. And I'm going to take my little pinchers and pinch right here and right here. So I'm pinching behind the collarbone and really feeling the texture of the muscle underneath. Once I get a nice grip, it's a grip that I'm kind of like, Jesus. But I want it to be very present, to say the least. Once I get a grip there, I'm getting soft in my knees, getting really loosey-goosey in the shoulder, and I'm going to wiggle the collarbone. Wiggle the collarbone. So every breath and every arm movement, the collarbone has the availability to move as well. So healthy functional movement of breath and arm bone is like collarbone involvement, should allow collarbone involvement. From here, go out just like another inch. Same thing, loosey-goosey, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. So it's a smidge painful, but if you keep your breath into your back body, that's like a little secret door to telling your system like everything is fine. Even though this maybe isn't pleasant, it doesn't mean we're not safe. And then one more spot a little bit closer to the joint there. Sternoclavicular joint. Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. It's a harder one to get to. Notice the texture of that tissue that's underneath your hands and see if that tissue, just like you did with the shoulder blade, see if the tissue can feel into your fingers just as much as your fingers are feeling into that tissue. And release. Feel into that. Notice a difference from side to side. Notice your posture, how it just feels different from one side to another. Maybe the placement of your head on your neck on your shoulders. Notice if the grounding of your feet is different from side to side. The more information you can take in, the more this change that you're creating is yours to keep. Let's do the other side. Eeyore. Oh, geez. Finding that kind of like, oh, geez stance. And then pinch. Pinch, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. Breathe. Notice if there's a difference from side to side. And then go a little bit more lateral, more to the outside of the midline. Wiggle, wiggle. Keep the shoulder blade heavy. the arm heavy like it's a big rope, a big thick rope. Those ropes in the gym that you kind of whip up and down. Imagine that is your arm right now. And then, if you can, a little bit closer to the sternoclavicular joint. If that's not available to you, go back to that first spot. It can get kind of intense, especially if you have neck pain or jaw issues. Sometimes this spot can get really tense, really uncomfortable. I can feel my shoulder wants to tense up here, so I'm just reminding it like you have weight. Gravity is your friend right now. Great. And release. And just again, check in from side to side. So like I said, with breath, our shoulders, the humerus moves with every breath, our collarbones move with every breath. And the movement, if it's this left shoulder, if it's this left collarbone, the movement is like this rotation on the inhale, like rotation like this on the inhale and rotation back on the exhale. So we're just going to exaggerate that with the breath. So again, our brain can start drinking in that information of our potential. So start with your gaze down, your palms back. And when you're ready, inhale from your humeral heads, roll the palms open and feel the collarbones curl back, the sternum starts to lift. Not so much that you compromise your back body breath, just enough that this becomes a little bit less calcified. So we're reminding it of potential. So it's a gentle reminder, kind. And let your eyes follow like the big lift above horizon line, like you're looking at a sunrise, and then exhale, the sun sets. I call this arm blooming. And the reason I want to name it is because we're going to use this movement a little bit later. Do 2 more. Be easy. This is a great movement to come back to if you're ever feeling like, wow, I'm starting to feel a little bit charged in my system or a little stressed out. Just slow down and come back to this breath. So once you get to the bloom of your shoulders, find how your shoulder blades organically find their way down the back without pulling them down. The shoulder blades roll down, the humeral heads roll out, the collarbones roll broadly. Keep that and bring your arms into a cactus position. This is one of my favorite positions to help with shoulder issues. So that rotation in the humerus is like the action of bringing this inner elbow forward. Inner elbow comes forward, but from the rotation of the humeral head, collarbones wide. Stay here for a moment and remind your back body that it has the potential to breathe. I'm going to kick all this stuff out of the way. Hold this here. Feel the broadness in your soft palate. And feel the softness in your sit bone, maybe even your pubic bone. Keep that as you float your right foot up. Step that right foot way back into as comfortably deep of a lunge as you can. Have you lost anything in the cactusness of your arms or the blooming of your humerus? Keep it in your arms if you can. If it starts to get stressful on the traps, bring your hands to your hips. No big deal. Either way, warrior 2. So I'm giving your body a little bit of challenge so you have some charge to work with. And more than anything, the breath in the back body is such a truth teller. I'm more interested in you settling and finding kindness than about pushing yourself towards strength. These classes aren't about building strength. They're about like challenging just enough to build a capacity for your parasympathetic nervous system to get like super strong. Classic warrior 2. Take one more breath here. This back arm is going to sweep forward, both arms up, shoulder blades down. Even here, there's that rotation in the humerus and the broadness in your collarbones. Stay there. Curl your back toes under. Step forward. Rise up. One more breath. And fold forward. Comfortable fold. Head can hang. Easy bend through the knees. Back and forth. Find that same pace that we had in the beginning of the practice, the pace like there is no rush. There is no reason even to do this but for enjoyment's sake right now. And may the sake of enjoyment be the reason for really getting interested and curious and drinking in all of the sensation in the back lines of the legs. The sense of heaviness or weight in the arms and the shoulders and the head and the neck. From here, bend through both knees. Drop your tailbone down and let your sacrum follow, rolling up one vertebrae at a time. Once you get to the top, find your inhale with the arm bloom. So it all rolls in sequence. Sweep your arms up into the sky. You can keep your arms here or come back into a cactus position, finding the arm bloom rotation of the shoulders here. Shoulder blades down, collarbones wide. Ground through the right foot, lift the left foot up. Have you lost anything? Back body breath. Broad palate. Broad pelvic floor. Step back as deeply and comfortably as is available to you now. If it feels like your back arches too much as you get here, you can bend through the back knee or take a shorter stance. Warrior 2 legs. And you'll see here, I'm not in my most noble, heroic warrior 2, because that isn't the intention of my practice today. I'm really staying in the integrity of what I'm trying to create, which is definitely more kindness, more exploration, more softness. Warrior 2, gaze over the front fingertips. Find your breath. Allow your feet to feel the texture of your mat. And let the whole foot press down into the mat uniformly, both feet. Sweep the back arm underneath, forward, and up. Ease in the arms, even though the elbows are straight. And then curl up onto the back toes. Step forward to the top of your mat. On your exhale, fold forward. One more breath here. From here, step back into plank position. Just a moment and come down onto your knees. Lower your forearms to the ground and bring your palms together. Press your finger pads together and separate your wrists and your palms as wide apart as you comfortably can. From here, walk your knees back a little bit more. Lean your tushy back and bring this mudra right behind the base of the neck where the neck and the shoulders meet. Feel the place where your elbows are meeting your mat or meeting the floor and release any tension there for a moment. Let go of any action or effort. And then right at that place where both elbows are meeting the floor, let that place get a little heavier with strength. So in the smallest, most sophisticated action, and I say sophisticated because I'm not using all of my muscles. I'm using the least amount of effort, the least amount of muscles as possible to press my elbows down into the ground. And really the muscles that we're calling upon are the triceps. So as the elbows, that specific spot where the elbows meet the ground gets heavier, the triceps will engage. Keep that and allow your broad, soft sit bones to stretch or lengthen back into the space behind them. without losing that sophisticated action of the elbows pressing down. Collarbones should naturally be wide here. You might even find when you bring your attention to your collarbones, you get the option to release maybe a little tension that's there unnecessarily. Jaw relaxed. And on your next breath, release the hands. Come up to all fours. And we're going to make our way into plank. If you have any wrist issues, feel free to come down onto your forearms. It's not like one is better than another. It's just today I'm going to do straight arm plank. If you're going to do straight arm plank with me, let the pressure of the whole palm be uniform on the floor. You're going to find the pressure wants to go into the pinky side of the wrist. To balance it, press evenly from the pinky side of the wrist all the way through the index finger knuckle. So that should help the action of the hands and the pressure of the hands get more uniform, and you're going to feel more of the arm engaged uniformly. Keep that. Come back into plank. How are your traps? Are they working too hard? Lower down just for a second. Press down uniformly through your hands, soft through the fingers. Relax your traps as much as possible and see how much you can keep that as you step back into plank. Notice how this time with that consciousness, it might be a little bit different. You can hold it here or really slowly start to rock forward so the shoulders move beyond the fingers and back. 3 more. If you're doing this with me, forward and back and forward and back. Okay, I lie one more time forward. You can lower down however you want. You're also welcome to lower down via chaturanga. So elbows bend alongside the ribs, but not pressing into them. All the way down. Take your fists, and your fists are going to go right to either side of your belly button. Relax your belly. So I tend to feel when I get really stressed out or I start to feel pangs of anxiety, I tend to feel it in my gut. And this is such a sweet counterbalance to that kind of tension. So my knuckles are gently kind of like finding their way into deeper crevices of the sides of my rectus abdominis. So alongside my belly button, and I'm pushing, not with great force, just with kind of more curiosity than like force. You can stay here if this feels like enough. If it feels like too much already, don't do it. Just come into cobra or sphinx pose. If it feels okay, rise up into a little bit more of a shalabhasana. Relaxing the belly again. You'll find your belly wants to tense because that's what we tend to do. And if this still feels okay, you can lift your feet up. Gentle engagement through the toes. About like 40% engagement. Relax the belly. Notice if one side of the belly has more sensation than the other. Tuck your chin. So as if like the soft palate and the area of the thoracic inlet where the shoulder girdle lives and the respiratory diaphragm, they're all kind of in the same uniform curve. Lower down. Rest on the side of your head. Feel the blood rush back into your feet and your legs. And let's do that one more time if you're up for it. You can remove your hands if you want. If you're like, that was fine. If it feels like, oh no, that feels helpful, keep your hands there. Float up into whatever version of shalabhasana feels right to you. And remember, the goal is just getting curious, softening. Where is a deeper kindness that I can give to myself here? For this goal of making space in this body to handle a greater capacity of life's experiences. One more breath. And release. From here, I'm going to release my hands and I'm going to take my left arm straight across my body. So my left arm's going to go straight across my body, parallel to the front of my mat. This right arm, I have two options for you. That right arm can go down as you rest the weight of your chest over your arm. If this feels like a lot, keep this arm here and you can kind of drive the direction of your chest with less pressure to the deltoid, or you can allow more pressure to come down along the arm depending on what feels okay. You can even bring this right arm straight back behind you and let the full weight of your chest drop into the arm. Notice where you feel sensation and length, and see if you can imagine your breath infusing all of the areas of sensation with a little more aliveness, oxygen, length, volume. And on your next breath, release. We're going to do the same arm, but I'm going to demo the opposite so you can see it. So whatever arm you just did, I just did my left. So left arm's going to come out to the side in about a 90, and then I'm going to lower it like 5 to 10 degrees. Before you roll over that shoulder, find that rotation of the humeral head in that arm bloom. So it's like the outer edge of the arm lowers down and the top of the arm blooms forward. The collarbone curls. Keep it as you roll over the shoulder. Bending through the back knee. And I'm going to suggest for this pose, often we keep this leg straight, but I'm going to suggest bending even the straight leg. It helps let the pelvis be